Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Nerding Out with Nic Bodiford. My name is Nic Bodiford. The date is September 6th, 2022. I am joined by one Jax Falcone at Dino Game Theory. Jax, thank you so much for your time. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm excited. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah. So for the listeners who do not know, we do a lot of redraft stuff. On the NerdBall platform. Jax, I hold Jax in very high regard. I think he's the top dynasty follow out there. I highly suggest everybody, hell yeah, I highly suggest everybody stop what you're doing, go follow him, go follow his band at the Undroppables on Twitter. So the goal of this episode is to take Jax's dynasty knowledge and try to get ahead specifically of the week 2 waiver stream. I think that dynasty offers redraft players an edge in learning, in educating oneself about kind of the depth chart battles that a lot of people ended up watching unfold in the preseason, maybe don't quite know how to think of some of these guys. So we're going to kind of try to go deep here. And maybe if you guys have a free agency run before week 1, you can snag one of these guys, add them to your roster, like an Elijah Mitchell last year, before somebody goes off, and then you have to scramble in waivers. So we're just going quarterback through running back. We're gonna start with the quarterbacks here. Jax, I was super high on Trey Lance. I was high on him last year. I was high on him this year, and this has me. The re-signing, the restructuring of Jimmy Garoppolo has me very scared. What is your take for 2022 and beyond?
Yeah, I mean, we had a pretty good conversation, me and Michael P. Duncan, on our show this last week about Trey Lance at the very end of the show. And I've asked the question multiple times of my guests on my show. We tend to be ceiling watchers, stargazers. We think of the upside. We think of the possibilities. But we don't often look at the floor and what the worst case scenario outcome is for X player, whoever we think about. We never think of, God, what does catastrophe look like with this player? And I just have asked, because we haven't seen it, is Trey Lance good? You know what I mean? The clear answer is that if he is good at NFL football, like a good NFL quarterback, that he's going to be a fucking smash as a fantasy asset. And that's where it comes down. That's where his value lies. I think right now in redraft, actually, he's a great value, because you can almost he's like going pretty late, like quarterback 10 to 12. Is that about right? I don't have ADP in front of me, but he's not going so early where you have to make this huge investment for him. So for that reason, I think he's a fine risk at his ADP. I've argued the dynasty situation is a little bit different, because he's a first round, or at the very latest, a second round dynasty startup asset. That's too rich for me. Even with the upside, I'd just rather look elsewhere to more safety early in those first 2 rounds. But that's just a game theory thing that I feel like. But those who really want to lean into the risk, he could be the top player in fantasy. That's how much upside he has, but it's a little bit scary. Now, I don't think that Jimmy G necessarily changes too much. I mean, he was either going to be good or he was not going to be good. And if he wasn't going to be good, like if they went out 2-5 and didn't have Jimmy G, they'd have been scrambling anyway. Who knows what they would have done, right? I suppose now, as you point it, if he sucks and they're 2-5, they're going to go to Jimmy G. I get it. But you were scrambling as a fantasy manager if they were dog shit and he was bad at 2-5 anyway, right? So whether they have Jimmy G or not, maybe it just signals that they don't have as much faith in him. I actually think, I was listening to the Mike Lombardi podcast, and he's sort of an insider. Before Jimmy G signed, he said Jimmy G's going to the Seahawks. They're gonna, and this was inside his inside information, they're gonna release him, and when they release him, Seattle's gonna swoop in and sign him. And I wonder if that was the scuttlebutt. And San Francisco said, yeah, fuck that, bro. We'll go ahead and pay him and keep him, because we don't want to create more competition in the NFC West. So that's just me reading the tea leaves and trying to figure out what was going on. So it might just be a game theory move from them, and they can still trade him now. So there's the long-winded answer of which I'm good at giving, by the way.
That's why you're here. I like it. So on the Michael Lombardi front, I mean that's super interesting. I had heard that you just broadly that the Seahawks might be trying to trade for him. I didn't think that was going to happen because I mean he probably adds like 2 wins, 3 wins to Seahawks. Like you wouldn't want to do that for your divisional opponent. To the Trey Lance like ceiling and floor points, I think that when we're in like best ball brain, the Trey Lance thing where like, you're screwed anyway, like that makes a ton of sense. I think that in redraft, there's what I don't love about this, the Jimmy G thing, and maybe you do get 7 games of shittiness out of Lance, which is probably him just running a lot, which might still be fruitful. I think it was like Davis Maddock or no, Jack Miller. He tweeted out like a month or two ago, Tim Tebow, he still worked his way to the quarterback 15, and that's not good, but like, all right, we can kind of work with it. Maybe you can salvage that. The point is, Kyle Shanahan, we're going to talk about the concept of draft capital in a little while here, but Kyle Shanahan is like the one coach that has shown us Joe Williams, Dante Pettis, Trey Sermon, Trey Lance last year that draft capital means less in this building. And this is like, he literally kept the dude in house that he benched Lance for last year. And so I don't, again, I'm a huge believer. Go ahead.
There's a downside story to tell for Trey Lance. And I think a lot of people miss that, especially in Dynasty, but whatever, but there's a huge upside story. So he's a risk reward player. It's as simple as that, because if you draft him and he hits, like I said, man, if he's just, I always come down to like in the NFL, it's always 3rd and 8. And like, what happens when it's 3rd and 8? We know that Tom Brady converts, you know what I mean? Like Aaron Rodgers converts, even guys like Dak and Kirk Cousins, they fucking convert. What will Trey Lance do? He's not going to run fucking 10 yards every time, so he's got to be able to convert those 3rd downs. He's got to be able to make those plays. And if he can make those plays, then he's going to be like a goal line monster. He's going to be able to scramble. He's going to be able to do all sorts of cool things to add to that, which is going to make him super, super valuable as a dynasty or fantasy asset, excuse me. So look, it's a risk reward play, and at his current value in redraft and best ball, he's totally worth it.
And he, in terms of dynasty though, he fell short in a couple areas on your, for listeners, Jax, he has a positional anatomy series that is phenomenal. I've sent it to a bunch of buddies, and it's very good. Do you want to break it down? Do you want to
it's cool as hell, man. Thank you. Yeah. Basically the anatomy series was like, I'd hear a lot of people talk about like, is this predictive? Is this stat predictive? And they'd all use R². And it's like, I don't know, man, I'm not an engineer or a fucking scientist. I don't know what all this stuff means, but I do know that some of the stats and some of the data points about players tend to predict whether or not they're going to be good in the NFL. So I thought, well, let's reverse engineer it and look at the elite players at each position and see which stats or which metrics or which identifiers identify them. And then lo and behold, man, there's a lot of similarities to these players. And so when you see a prospect that doesn't fit into those, my antenna go up. Like, so basically we create, I think for the quarterback, it's like, you can tell the people, like, what were some of the things that I had on the anatomy series of the quarterback that would identify an elite quarterback at the NFL level? Like, what were they as prospects?
Yeah, so 2 of the things that Lance didn't check the boxes on is just pure pass attempts.
Yep.
And then one was, I think, a season where you go over, I think it was like 3,000 yards, and he was at here it is. Basically, I'll hit 3,200 pass yards, 35 plus total touchdowns in a single season. Only Trey Lance's 2,786 passing yards falls short. So I mean that's pretty big red flag. We have college completion percentage. You have a lot of stuff across all positions that touches on freshman and sophomore year production.
Yes.
But height, weight.
Yeah, it's like, of course. I mean, you want to look at, height and weight. I mean, I just sometimes wonder if that matters. It probably doesn't, but it's sometimes interesting to see, like, probably weight and BMI sometimes, because if you have a guy who's like, let's imagine there's a cool college quarterback who's like 6'6", 190, you'd be like, dude, that's going to be a problem. Like, he probably could sling it in college, but like in NFL, he might get might get fucked up,
Yeah.
So like whatever, right? Or if he's, even the Kyler Murray thing, like if he wasn't mobile, he might have some problems. I mean, his mobility certainly saves him, his cannon arm, and he also had a lot of, of the things we look for. Like, I always think the two biggest things are like, or three, I guess, is like completion percentage by yards per attempt, right? It's like how, because if you can complete a lot of passes, but also move it down the field, you probably are a good quarterback. And then interception percentage, like if you're doing that and you're not throwing interceptions, you're probably good. And then if you started at a young age and you played a lot of games and then you were prolific, I mean, I know this all sounds basic, but like a lot of times we overlook this stuff, it's like I was way off Jordan Love mainly because of he didn't have good completion percentage. He didn't have good yards per attempt. He didn't have good QBR. He had very high interception percentage. Like he didn't hit any of the things. And lo and behold, everybody was saying, well, he's got the tools. It's like, yeah, not everybody. Like, first of all, the one swan song is Josh Allen. He ruins it for everybody because everybody will just go, well, what about Josh Allen? It's like, what about the one motherfucker who did it that, is the outlier? How about all the other guys who were just like him who failed? It's like, that's what you should be looking at. So to me, Josh Allen is unbelievable. I think anybody who's ever analyzed data for prospect profiling looks at Josh Allen and goes, yeah, that's a different story.
Yeah, just throw on their hands. So he's the only guy who had an interception rate over 2.75. Anyway, so Lance is intriguing here.
Lance misses a few. Namely, he played at a super small school. He did get great draft capital, but he only played a short period of time. Obviously, COVID, like who knows what would happen. But let's say that he plays that second year, the COVID year, and he's average or whatever. Like then his draft capital slips or whatever. And if he was dope, it would have sort of signaled to us that he's awesome. So it just creates questions. It doesn't mean he's good or bad. It just creates a question because we have less information proving that he's either good or bad. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Would you roster Jimmy Garoppolo at the end of a bench in redraft?
I have him in the Scott Fish Bowl, but that was drafted in July.
Okay.
So not really. Right now, it's looking like a worse and worse pick, and I don't even know what to do with him because the whole idea of drafting him in July was he's going to go someplace and then his value will ascend. That didn't work out, So we all thought that was really going to happen, and now it's like and this sucks, but you're like waiting for an injury, like if Kirk Cousins pops an ACL, it's like fucking Minnesota, let's trade for him, make it happen. But aside from something like that, Stafford's elbow, whatever, like unless something happens to somebody, I think Jimmy G is just going to kind of be cool to like collect his money for this year and sign someplace next year,
I think you're right. All right. I've heard you talk about Jalen Hurts and Jalen Hurts's dynasty prospects. And I tend to agree with you. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but as I recall, you don't think he will be starting in Philadelphia next year, but you do think he will be starting somewhere next year. Is that a fair assessment?
No, I think he will be starting somewhere next year.
Okay.
Like whether it's in Philadelphia or not.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So like, if for whatever reason, I think, as he's become, so the main concern with Jalen Hurts was, what if he loses his starting job? This was going into last season. Well, at that point, I was like, well, if he loses his starting job after 2 starts, 3 starts, 4 starts, 5 starts, well, then it's trouble for him. Now that he's sort of posted a pretty good season, I mean, led them to the playoffs. He sucked in the playoffs, but, so now he'd have to really fall on his face in order to like not be a starter somewhere next year. Like, I don't know. It'd have to be really bad. So, and I don't think it's going to be, I think they're going to be pretty fucking good. And so I think he's probably going to be good, whether or not he has playoff success. I actually now think he will be in Philadelphia, but it's the same thing. I do. Yeah. I mean, come on, they're going to be good. So
I know,
unless they're bad, I think they have to kind of keep them. So like, it's like with Jalen Hurts, you look at like, I mean, even if they're like 12, like win 11 or 12 games and lose in the first round of the playoffs, it's going to be tough for them to be like, fuck this guy. You know what I mean?
I do. And I also think that Howie Roseman is as cutthroat as a guy is. And I mean, so maybe these are the two like perfect front offices to be talking about here, San Francisco and the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, this is the team who I think, made Doug Peterson tank. Like they made him put in that third stringer to fucking tank the game.
Sudfeld.
Right. Yeah. So thank you. So you put in Sudfeld, oh, we just needed to see what do whatever.
He deserved a shot or whatever.
That's
Stupid.
yeah. Yeah.
Fuck.
They wanted him to lose that game. Well,
Is it
what
okay
did
if
they
I
do?
swear?
You do. Yeah. Yes. Fuck yes.
Okay. Cool.
What they did this offseason was they added another first round pick. I mean, and we're talking about before the show, this is like the most loaded QB draft class that theoretically that we think we have seen in a while.
Yeah.
To me, this looks like Howie Roseman is going, Hurts is either going to like thunderously prove that he is our starter or we're fucking moving on.
Yeah.
And I think that Jalen Hurts, I think he's going to smash in fantasy while he's a starter. But I wonder if they're going to put Gardner Minshew in there. If he's not Josh Allen, they're like, screw it, we're going to tank.
I think the more that time goes by, the stronger the case gets for Jalen Hurts. Literally with every moment and certainly every start, it just gets better and better for him. The itchy trigger finger sort of happens usually earlier on, or as talk about a team who should have an itchy trigger finger with like Daniel Jones or whatever. They just haven't done it. Like I've been arguing that's the spot for Jimmy G, although I'm sure Jimmy G doesn't think that's the spot for Jimmy G. But the Giants should think it is. That's for damn sure. And like so some teams tend to hang on too long, and other teams, don't. I don't think that the Eagles will hang on too long, but I don't think they have either. Like they're poised. Like I always feel like what better option do you have? And some mid-round, first-round rookie is probably not it. It might be. I don't really know. I don't know. I do think that Jalen Hurts will find his contract in Philly. I think he'll be there. I just think that now. That could change, but especially with week 1 approaching, eh?
Yeah. They
go out and get smoked or something, and he throws like 4 picks. I'll change my mind immediately.
Yeah, well, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. We'll see. I'm rooting for him. I think he's fun as hell to watch, and I love what they did with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. I mean, this, and even like Quez Watkins, whatever, but like fun little slot receiver, Dallas. Yep. It's a super fun team. Moving on to the wide receivers. So I pinged you about this guy on Twitter, Lance McCutcheon.
Yeah.
Does he have a lane here with Van Jefferson injured? I think he does too.
Yeah, he does. I mean, look, I forget the other guys. It's Tutu Atwell and like some other guys. Oh, Skowronek.
Right? Ben Skowronek. Yeah.
He's
blocking
awful.
Wide receiver.
He really ought to not be on the like. That's like a pity. A pity position. Like they should not have him on. He's not good enough. Look, who am I? I mean, I'm some asshole in my mom's basement. So what do I know? But the view is great of the TV in my mom's basement. I saw him be terrible. So, but I think he's better than all those guys. So I think he's the 4th best receiver on the team with a chance that he's better than that. So we'll see, because the teams are always incentivized to play guys with draft capital and contracts, because the owners pay the fucking salaries. And they're like, wait, I'm paying that guy $7 million and you're going to, get rid of him for this scrub, so Lance, for those reasons, will have a tougher hill to climb, but he's a sneaky guy to add, because if somehow or another he gets on the field, he's a big play waiting to happen. He looked really good in the preseason. He was really dominant in college. He might be just really good. It's possible,
So what I like about the LA is that they continue to be a really shrewd front office, especially with like acquiring receivers. So Brandon Cooks, Allen Robinson this year. The things that Lance does not, we know him Lance, we're calling him Lance. Things that
first name basis.
That's right. The things that he doesn't have going for him. He's undrafted. He didn't really. I was looking at his college stuff earlier on. Didn't look like he really broke out till like his senior year. He's 22 years old. I think his physical profile, he's 6'3", 202. Yeah. He's kind of, I guess he's a little bit lanky, but we're kind of seeing in your anatomy series, we're kind of seeing a shift to like, not like thin guys, but not really the like, teams aren't just looking for like Julio every time.
Yeah. It's the old, that everybody needs to be 6'4", 220.
Yeah.
Demaryius Thomas. But now, Des Bryant, Demaryius Thomas, these bigger, bully ball outside receivers, but that's not really what we're looking for anymore. We're looking for guys who can run multiple routes and, win over the middle, win deep, and do a lot of different things and be a little bit quicker and smoother. Obviously, these guys like Julio and Calvin Johnson would be good in any era, but they're no longer Kenny Britt, whatever. So, so yeah, I think he does fit the profile. Yeah, he's certainly a long shot. The idea, I think I said it, in my last show, I was like, if he's good, he's got a shot to be really great. But it's also very probable that he's just a shitbag who doesn't do anything in the league.
Yeah.
Like you got to remember like that, but who cares? I'd rather have that shitbag that has a higher ceiling than Tutu Atwell, who I just think has almost no chance of being elite ever in this league.
I agree. Yeah. I mean, he's like 150 pounds. That is too far away from the Calvin Johnson thing. Would you roster McCutcheon in redraft over Van Jefferson?
No.
Really?
No. In redraft, no, because Van Jefferson had a sneaky little season last year, and
he did.
I think he's going to play ahead of Lance by a mile. He's going to have to. So that's the thing is like, even if they're like, let's pretend like we're playing Madden and they're both rated an 80, like, you know what I mean? They're both like the same player. Van Jefferson's going to play over him all season and never is. Lance has to be way better or Van has to suffer an injury. Like there's just too much sort of institutional investment in Van Jefferson, and he's proven it on the field. Like you think about it, like imagine walking into that locker room, like Van Jefferson's like, dude, I had fucking 75 targets last year. Who the fuck are you? You know what I mean? Like there's a certain amount of seniority and it's just weird. Like it's just any other workplace. So Lance is going to have to be way, 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 way better than Van Jefferson to force his way on the field. Now, if you're telling me that Van Jefferson is missing time, I'm sure you're looking that up potentially. Because that I don't know, but I don't think he's going to play over him. What's going on with Van Jefferson? You're telling me right now.
He's got a knee injury.
How bad?
I'm looking on like Draft Sharks, and they have it as a grade 2 ACL sprain. So it's not like a full rupture, but that they're saying that happened in July, late July. I mean, that's part of the equation here, right? With the gamble on McCutcheon, obviously. I don't know. I have personal bias that I've been trying to work through where I at one point, and I've hit you up on Twitter about this. Like I do kind of go for the like freaky athletic specimens, and I have come to understand, like talking with you and Fuzu about wide receiver prospects, like athleticism doesn't matter at all.
Not really,
or at least the measurable stuff. It's very strange.
Right.
And Van kind of profiled as like a less athletic Cup, and so it's strange that he ended up in this field stretching role.
Yes. I agree. I thought Van Jefferson was sort of in the mold of Cooper Kupp, so I thought he was sort of a backup. But he's been good, man. He's been really good. Like just as a third wide receiver. I mean, probably one of the better ones. I mean, if we were making a list, he'd pop up to the top of the list of best third wide receiver on a team, I guess,
That's fair.
So I think he's pretty good. I mean, but yeah, if he's hurt, that changes everything. And Lance is one of those guys that like in dynasty, you should definitely have him rostered, right?
Okay.
Like a deep roster. Like, the thing with redraft, it's like a lot of people play what is it, like a quarterback, 2 running backs, maybe 3 receivers, tight end, flex, and then depending on how you play, defense, kicker. A lot of them are, that's still the basic setup, and then like 5 or 6 bench. I've convinced my my home league, which has been going since 1999. Shout out,
awesome.
Shout out to get to like we have multiple flex. We're 18 deep on the roster. Awesome. So we draft a little deeper. Basically, all the quarterbacks get taken. It's like kind of like so. Then you can maybe consider them, but in standard sort of redraft, Yahoo standard, ESPN standard, you can't do it because it's stupid. You're going to be passing up like Rashad White or something. You know what I mean? You just can't do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I like the pragmatism. I could fall for these stories from time to time. Okay, so another story though that I think maybe you and your boy Chalk are falling for, or maybe not. Trey Nixon, where are we at on him this year? I was hoping he was going to make the active roster, but it looks like he ended up on practice squad.
Yeah, it sounds like pour one out. I was never in. And Chalk was never in as far as he was like we talk about all the time, like dynasty game theory 101 here is like, you always want to be like getting who, like you look at your dynasty roster, it's deep, 25, 30 man roster, some even deeper than that. You want to look at like the bottom 2 guys and be like, do I really need whoever these guys are? Probably not. Generally speaking, you want to like find some hotness. And if it's Trey Nixon and you drop some other shit bag that doesn't do anything, and you and then Trey Nixon becomes a shit bag and you pick up Lance McCutcheon, and you just want to be, you want to be trying to find the lightning in a bottle, because as he describes when we were having this conversation, he's like, that's where you find Darren Waller. Yeah. Oh, he's a druggie who hadn't played in 3 years, but he was fast when he came out. Oh, I'm not picking him up. And now it's Darren Waller. Logan Thomas, former quarterback. Now he plays 100% of the snaps for, now he's been hurt, but you get my point. Like you can find some real lightning in a bottle when you do that. So you have to, mine the waiver wire. And Trey Nixon was just a guy getting some camp buzz. I'll also give you a little known fact. Trey Nixon was Ernie Adams' final pick before he retired and went off into the sunset. And Ernie Adams was Bill Belichick's Harvard graduate genius guy who literally did. People wondered what his role was at the Patriots. He'd be like, is he a coach? No. Is he front office? No. Who the fuck is he? He's Bill Belichick's genius that follows him around and tells him smart shit. Oh, pretty cool role. That was Ernie Adams. Ernie Adams picked Trey Nixon. That was the final pick he made for the Patriots before he retired.
I didn't know that. That's wild.
There you go.
So, all right, a couple other long shots here. Guy who I was really high on, Michael Bandy of the Los Angeles Chargers. And another one who I think actually, I don't know, maybe can duke it out with Cedric Wilson, Eric Ezukanma of the Miami Dolphins. Do either of these guys move the needle for you? I think Bandy's probably just like a fun story, but Ezukanma, he maybe can play a little bit.
Yeah, I think Ezukanma, I can't say his name, but I know who you're talking about. The other guy, never heard of him. And I mean that, like, I don't even know who that is. And I'm not too proud to say that. I don't give a shit. I don't know who Michael Bandy is. If he ends up being awesome, save this clip and be like, look at this fucking idiot. Ezukanma looked pretty good in preseason, from what I saw. I don't watch much preseason. I honestly try to ignore preseason every year in my role, like as a person who's supposed to know shit. I'm supposed to like pay attention, but I actually think it does a lot of damage sometimes. You are guilty of, I love it too. You're sort of new to dynasty, longtime fantasy player, but new to dynasty. And when you start getting into dynasty, you're like, you just go deeper and deeper and deeper. And you're like, oh, these guys are good. I love these guys. And you're right. But, I'll give you an example. We're going to get to this guy, but I'm going to tell a story now.
Okay.
I have been all over Jordan Mason, right? You're going to ask me about Jordan Mason.
Yeah.
And my thought process with Jordan Mason was like, hey, this kid's pretty good. He might make this team. Like, this is crazy. Like, I don't know who doesn't make it. Like, you had Hasty and Jeff Wilson and Eli Mitchell and Sermon and all these guys. And I was like, how the hell is this guy going to even make the team? I was like, I don't know, but I think he might. Like, he's good. And so then he makes the team. And I'm like, victory lap. He made the team. Look, I'm so smart. So I'm in this league. And this guy sends me this trade for like Travis Etienne, and it's a bunch of shit. It's like, Kareem Hunt, Corey Davis, and Jordan Mason or something. And I'm like, fucking pass, bro. And he's like, I thought you loved Jordan Mason. And I was like, well, not like that. You know what I mean? Like, not like that. I don't think. I'm not a fucking idiot. Like, I already won the Jordan Mason argument. He made the team. He made Trey Sermon, 3rd round pick, didn't make the team. Jordan Mason made the team. He may never play again. I already won the victory lap. Take it. He made the team. That was the win. It's like, sometimes you're just looking for, because now if he gets on the field, maybe he's James Robinson, right? I don't know, but it's going to be hard for Jordan Mason to get on the field unless there's injuries or whatever, right? Same thing with with James Robinson. I love James Robinson, but I didn't have him anywhere because he was behind Leonard Fournette, Raquel Armstead, and a bunch of other guys. Chris Thompson was there. There's all sorts of guys. And then all of a sudden, COVID hit. One guy was out forever. They released Fournette. Like, it was a lucky little string for him to get on the field. So I didn't really see that coming. Who did? Except for Evan Silva. Got to give him his credit. But you get my point, right? So it's like, like, even if you like a player, it's hard to imagine what Jordan Mason can do. So same thing with Ezukama. Do we like him? Sure. But he's got to climb some dead bodies there. I mean, he's got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And then you're right, Cedric Wilson, they paid him. Again, he's got to be way, way better than Cedric Wilson. And you know who else is a wide receiver on that team? You want to tell the people?
Mike Gesicki.
That's right, baby.
Yeah, he does that, and it's kind of a hysterical way of thinking about it. But like, yeah, in the event that Cedric Wilson is, he misses time, which is you trip over, you go, oh, I don't want to say injury. Well, yeah, maybe he protests. He just misses time. That's how we'll talk about it.
There you
misses
go.
Time.
Nicely said.
Yeah. So Cedric Wilson misses time. Then Ezukama does have to go like battle, a jumbo slot receiver in Gesicki, assuming Gesicki's still on the team, which I don't know what they really, he's not a scheme fit with they're doing the Pete Carroll, hey, we got to turn this guy into a blocker thing. But yeah,
I was shocked. I was shocked when they franchised Gesicki. I was shocked when they franchised Njoku. I mean, I was just shocked at the money that was thrown around at tight ends, but it seems to happen every year, but this year a little bit more than other years, where it was like, oh shit, they're paying these tight ends. And if you think about it, like if we turn off our fantasy brain and turn on our NFL brain, if you get rid of like Njoku, like what's your alternative? It's like,
so Harrison Bryant,
you're like, oh no, oh shit, like I like Harrison Bryant, of course, but still you need more than one tight end, so you're like, you're scrambling to get a tight end. You're like, what do we do? What do we do? What do we do? Like, Gerald Everett getting money. Like, it's hard to find a quality. Conklin got money to go. Uzoma. Like, if you got Njoku, you're like, let's just pay Njoku. I don't want, you know what I mean? So it's like, it is interesting just to watch them. But all those guys are, kind of marginal for us in the fantasy world.
That's fair. All right. So I was, I'm proud to say that I was an early adopter of the Gabe Davis mania a year or two ago. And I tried to stick it to Joe Biscaglia for his Emmanuel Sanders propaganda, but he beat us. He beat us. Yeah. Yep. But just break it down. Like, so you have been on Gabe Davis for as long as anybody has been, just for fun. I mean, we're obviously not talking about like deep cuts here, but just for fun.
He's not deep no more.
Give the people the information here. Who is Gabe Davis? Why should they be believing in the guy they just spent a 4th round pick on, or maybe not believing?
Well, if you go back to the anatomy of an elite wide receiver, Gabe Davis checked all the boxes, every single one, except for draft capital. That was it. So for me, when you check all the boxes except for draft capital, I feel like it's a miss by the NFL. Even Amon Ra felt the same way.
Dude.
I find these guys, and it's not like magic. I'm not like, oh my God, look how smart I am. I'm such a scout. It's like, no, they missed. It's easy to see. So it doesn't mean they're good. It just means that they should have been drafted sooner based off of that data.
Yeah.
It could be that, and I always say this too. It's like, you get that data and then it's like, well, the guy could be a shithead. Like, right. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, totally.
I think it was Corey Coleman was the guy for the Browns. Didn't the Browns take him?
He was drafted like 5th overall.
Yeah, he was a 1st round pick, Corey Coleman. Yeah. And I think it was the Browns, and it was the Hard Knocks, and he was the biggest dumbass there ever was. But how do you know that? Like, how do we know? We don't know. Like, we just don't know. So that stuff is, we just don't have that information. We do have how many catches they had in college and shit, and we have the film, we can watch it. Gabe Davis was just good in college and deserved to be a top 3 round pick in the NFL, slipped to the 4th, and he was a 21-year-old rookie. 21-year-old rookie, puts up 600 yards, 7 touchdowns, whatever it was, 599, excuse me for those checking. I rounded to 6, sorry. and then the most disturbing thing was they brought in Emmanuel Sanders. That's so far the worst data point for him. That's it. And then he didn't play. And it was like, well, maybe we're a little too high on Gabe Davis. And then Buffalo said, no, you guys were right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's the number 2 here. It's 100%. You guys were like, they're basically now saying, yeah, he just maybe, who knows, right? Now, it's still possible he's not as good as some of us think he is. And I don't think he's great. When Kenny Gallaudet was playing, like, remember Kenny Gallaudet?
Yeah, back when he was good.
No. Oh, he still plays? Sorry.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. remember Kenny Gallaudet, Detroit Kenny Gallaudet, right? So if we when Gabe Davis came out, I said, and it was crazy when I said this, I was like, I think he reminds me a little bit of Kenny Gallaudet. And it was like, come on, dude. And it's funny now. He goes like round 4, round 3 sometimes in best ball, and Kenny Galladay's undrafted. So whatever. But you know, he's a big time outside receiver. I think he's better than Kenny Galladay, I don't know, man. Like Kenny Galladay, I mean, he's a big outside receiver with big play potential who can score touchdowns on a team with a guy with a gigantic arm. I mean, I've heard a lot worse stories here. And so he checked every box of Anatomy series, and he's poised for immense opportunity. That's the Gabe Davis story.
Yeah. And I like it. And I'm really happy to be along for the ride with it. He's a super fun guy to root for. He's a super fun guy to watch. I love the Bills. I love Sean McDermott, love Brian Dable. I'm rooting for the Giants. It would be so cool. Phrase it like this. It would be so cool if Kenny Galladay can be Gabe Davis.
Yeah.
But we have more positions that we're going to keep moving these chains here. Do you have any more parting words on Davis? Any more praise?
I got to say one thing. So
yeah,
the one thing I'll say about Gabe Davis is now that I've been all in, and it's like, I don't necessarily like, I think my take on him is very pragmatic, but despite my pragmatism, I'm viewed as like this giant Gabe Davis stan. I'll take it. And the one thing I'm now excited for, because of my reputation as a Gabe Davis guy, is I didn't really realize this, but now it's going to be super, super fun to watch him go out and post 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns. So yeah, eat it.
I love it. All right, we're moving on to tight end. So I got a few names I'm just going to throw out here, and we can spend as much or as little time as you want to on them, because so we got Trey McBride, MF and Mackey winner, Mackey Award winner, Isaiah Likely, who was kind of like tested poorly, but he blew up in the preseason, which, hey, you were just saying maybe that's dangerous. Brevin Jordan, who I kind of like because I like Davis Mills. Yeah.
No, it's funny because like, I don't know, man. I'm such a it's so easy to fall for tight ends, isn't it?
Yeah, because we're thirsty for them. We don't have any.
It's so easy. Like Brevin Jordan, I'm like, I start picturing like 7 targets out of the slot, and like, oh my god, it's gonna be great. He's gonna be all over the place. And like Isaiah Likely, oh my god, yeah, totally. 2 tight end sets for Baltimore. He's gonna be catching touchdowns. What was the first one you said?
Trey McBride,
like, oh, rookie, he's gonna be great. Like, Ertz is gonna get an ankle sprain. He's gonna be in there running routes.
He's got Kyler a calf Murray. Injury.
I mean, so it's such and then every time we're like, dude, there's no tight ends. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's so ridiculous. So I don't know what to do about all that. And so I feel like my strategy in a larger sense with tight ends is like, especially in dynasty, is just take a bunch of shots but swing for upside. Okay. And the reason I swing for upside is because you want Waller and Andrews. Otherwise, if you have Higbee or whatever, like if you have Higbee or Hooper or just any of the guys, you're like, it's fine. Like, I don't give a shit which one I have, right? Yeah. So you only are trying to hit like a gigantic home run. And there's only 2 ways to really get that. That is an all-purpose tight end who, like Andrews, who just was, and Kelsey, who just get yards, or touchdown upside, or a combination of both is unbelievable. And like Tanyan, remember Tanyan, like, hey, look, a tight end in an elite offense who got 50 targets, but 12 touchdowns. It's like, what the hell? Yeah. So, that's where I look, and the sort of the yards upside comes from elite athleticism and the ability to block, which is why Mike Gesicki is not a high upside tight end, because he's a slot wide receiver. He doesn't play in line. They can't play him in line and run play action and have him rip the seam, because they don't give a shit if he's blocking, because he just doesn't. It's just not what his game is. So, but a guy like Kittle or Gronk, who are like these elite blockers, you go put the ball in the belly of the running back, and dudes are really frightened about the blocking ability of Kittle and Gronkowski. So they're able to get past that linebacker level, right? Play action actually works.
Yeah.
So that's where blocking matters. It's not that you want them blocking too much, which has actually hurt Kittle, and it hurt Gronk to some degree sometimes. I mean, remember last year, he was out there, I'm just a blocker, man. Remember the whole thing. So yeah, sometimes that can actually play against you a little bit, but at least you're out there. And now you have touchdown upside if that's a good offense. So I think I'm talking about Albert Okuibunam somehow. I don't know.
I was gonna ask you if you wanted to talk about George Kittle by talking about Albert O.
Yeah.
I think we've worked our way here.
Yeah. I mean, George Kittle, that was one of my very, very first real big wins on Twitter for sure. Like the receipts are just spectacular, just spectacular because, after his rookie season, he was okay. He was good. You can look up the stats, whatever. It doesn't really matter, but he was good, but he was going off outside the top 10 in dynasty and outside the top 12 in redraft. That next year is second year in the league. And I said he was going to be a top 5 tight end.
Yeah.
And people were like, come on, dude. And I even have a post where I said he's going to be tight end 1. I said top 5 or whatever. He ended up being top 3 that next year. And he was just dope. And it's George Kittle. And so that was one of my very, very greatest calls. But it was just based off this stuff. It was like he had great run after catch. Honestly, the same thing led me to Jonnu Smith. So it's not like it's foolproof. It's not like, oh, look how smart I am. It's just I'm looking for the things that would lead to George Kittle. They were in Jonnu Smith, and that motherfucker didn't happen. Yeah. But you sort of want – I'd rather either have George Kittle or Jonnu Smith and not just Austin Hooper.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, totally.
I can just drop Jonnu Smith and get Austin Hooper. Like I can have Austin Hooper whenever I want. There's a bunch of those guys. So I'm taking swings to try and hit the Kittles when I can. And if you end up hitting Jonnu Smith, well, just don't worry about it.
Brief tangent here. The Ringer guys, Danny Kelly, who great. Oh my God, you had me in stitches when you had him on and he started laughing and you go, there goes Danny Kelly with his laugh. He has the greatest laugh in fantasy, but
love it.
They have some running gag about Andrew CK, the guy he sings the Party Hard song, and they got the did you hear this? The listener mailbag question. They go, if name who is the NFL player who best embodies Andrew CK, and Kelly couldn't get George Kittle's name out of his mouth fast enough, and it was a perfect match. It was a perfect match.
Love that. Love that. Yeah, no, Danny's great, man. He's been gracious enough to be on my podcast a couple of times, and he's a fellow Seattle guy like you and Nate Liss. Yeah. So you guys are all up there.
Okay, Kyle Pitts. What can he finish as the tight end 1 this year?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think so
absolutely.
Too.
Yeah, it's definitely within his range of outcomes. It's the hard part will be the touchdown upside because, how many touchdowns will Atlanta score? Yeah, right. Travis Kelce might score more touchdowns than the Atlanta Falcons. Kind of joking, but when you think about it, you're like, oh, is that possible? You have to actually think about whether that's possible or not. It's not, but it feels like it is. So,
I mean, the Panthers had 14 last year, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know.
It's close, right? It is actually kind of so that's the point is that's been kind of one of my points for Gabe Davis was not to circle back. Everything goes back to Gabe Davis.
Do it.
But it was if you're looking for touchdown upside at the wide receiver position, or in this case, the tight end position, which he's basically a wide receiver, wouldn't you look on teams if I tell you Mahomes is going to throw 60 touchdowns, I'd be like, well, maybe there's a motherfucker over there who had some touchdowns, right? If I tell you Mariota has 12, you're like, well, let's not look there. So it's just kind of where are you going to look? Attached to the quarterbacks who are throwing touchdown passes, you may find a receiver there. And that's where guys like Mike Williams, Gabe Davis, anybody on Dallas, or, you start to just go down the list. It's there could be a guy there. And that'd be the wide receiver I'd actually look to target in a redraft league. Most of these redraft, Jalen Tolbert. Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen in week 1. This is interesting. It's kind of if we go back to Justin Jefferson, I'm not saying Tolbert is Jefferson, but what I'm saying is if we go back to Justin Jefferson, when he broke out, it was week 3.
Yeah, that's right.
Week 1 and 2 of his rookie season, he was playing behind Olabisi Johnson, and I dropped him in a redraft league that I would have won if I kept him. So you just, But that's what happens is you're never sure. You want to move quickly and make those waiver moves. But look, Tolbert could go off in week 1. That's another one. So I would sort of, if you have roster space, just throw Tolbert on there. And if he flames out in week 1, you can drop him safely and like pick up whatever, he's perfect. Now you might throw away a player who breaks out later in the year, but whatever, dude, you just got to kind of go with your gut there. But what if Tolbert goes out and puts up 780 and a touch?
I know the Noah Brown thing is weird. Sorry,
yes.
Go ahead.
No, you're right. Go ahead.
Well, it's strange, and I had Drew Davenport on here
Nice.
late in July. He is so nice.
Yes.
But yeah, so he's a big Noah Brown guy. But I like back in June, I was very much into Tolbert. I think I still prefer Tolbert to Noah Brown. It's that we're playing this game where we don't want to just bank on like projectable volume, like Alan Lazard.
Yeah.
I don't, but like that is there, and I don't want to just ignore that in Dallas, because behind CeeDee Lamb we're just talking about Dalton Schultz.
Yes.
That in similar to the Isaiah Likely thing, like now we're getting the news stories that Tony Pollard, the Cowboys could like lead the league in 2 running backs. They're not, I mean, maybe they do, and maybe it's like 17% or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not like anything.
Right.
So I think Tolbert is extremely interesting. Okay, so let's say he hits. So let's say he does that like 6 catches, 80 yards touchdown thing. What do you do with it? In redraft, do you sell right away?
Sure. Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, you can. But I mean, I think if you're ahead of it, you don't have to put in a waiver claim. So you're just trying to do that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I mean, if there's a few spots like that in the league where there's like a question as to what's going to happen after the top 2. Baltimore is one of them, right? It's like, okay, we got Andrews and Bateman, and then it's like, I don't know which one of those dudes is going to be, relevant. And there's a few offenses like that, you just got to keep your eye on it. And sometimes it's like, I did this, I forget who it was. I think it might have been Tanyan the year he broke. It was Tanyan. Tanyan's year that he had those 12 touchdowns. I did a post after week 1, and Tanyan had 0 catches, 0 targets, 0 yards, 0 touchdowns. He had nothing, but he played like 75% of the snaps and ran like, his route participation was nearly 100% on those snaps. Like, he was involved. And I was like, wow, he's out in the pass. I mean, he's in the pass game. This guy might be a guy. And then people were like, dude, he did nothing. I was like, I don't know, man. Maybe, just keep an eye on him. And then he had that season. And it's like, so after week 1, sometimes you can find the week 2 guy just by sort of looking for just participation. If you were to look at a full season of 17 games, there's going to be weeks where Justin Jefferson has 2 targets, 14 yards. Like, doesn't mean he sucks, but like, you know what I mean? So like, what if that's week 1? Don't judge everything by week 1. Like, I look at like moreover, like snap share, like, look at some of the deeper numbers in week 1 that can lead you to understanding what might happen in the future. And that's how you can get ahead of your league mates.
Yeah. I think Dwayne McFarland has talked about how it's like 80%.
That's my guy.
Yeah. He's the best.
No, that's the guy who does it the best. Especially he does it every single week. He talks about route participation. He talks about third downs and everything. Dwayne McFarland is the GOAT for that type of information. And so you're right on the money, Nick. Exactly.
Thank you. I think it was 80% of routes was the ticket for tight ends. And yeah, on Dwayne, I mean, that dude, he changed the game. We now hear long down and distance.
Yes.
We just hear that phrase now. That is all Dwayne.
Dude, I fucking love that dude.
Yeah. Absolutely brilliant guy. I'm doing some work with PFF now, and I've had the opportunity to talk to him a little bit more, and like, I can't speak highly enough of him. Back to Kyle Pitts though.
Yeah.
So you tweeted out this screenshot from Pro Football Reference a little while ago, 21-year-olds with and in NFL history with 65 plus receptions and 1,025 receiving yards. Pitts is number 7 on this list. The guys who he accompanies are Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Randy Moss, Amari Cooper, Mike Evans, Keenan Allen.
Is that good?
I think it's good.
Is that good?
I think it's good. So he scored one touchdown, and like I was so in on Pitts as being an outlier, and he was an outlier, just not in the way that he was like supposed to be.
Yeah, that's right. Well said, just with the context and everything. Yeah, that's how it's done.
So I mean, I think that the guy can just develop into this like just absolute dominant force. We got Drake London out there who can actually be an X receiver on the team now, and that, you know, maybe he can bump up, maybe Pitts can bump up his inline routes a little bit more, and I think the path is there for him to be the tight end one, and I think it's been exciting to kind of gamble on that this year. But of course, like, you know, Travis Kelce is Travis Kelce, and Mark Andrews is Mark Andrews. I mean, they're just beasts.
No, I'm not drafting very much Travis Kelce because the downside and the opportunity cost of being able to get Pitts. I mean, you know, I love Goddard at value, so for me, it's like I look at if Goddard and Pitts and everybody were like scrunched up real close to him, it's like, well, yeah, I'll just take Kelce. But they're not. They're at a much, much bigger discount. And so the difference between Kelce and Goddard at the end of the season, I would project that Kelce will be better than Goddard. But whomever you're taking Kelce right before, you know, like Dalvin Cook or, you know, Devontae Adams or Stephon Diggs, like versus who you're taking in front of Goddard, you know, like it's just, I'd rather have Goddard and one of those dudes than Kelce and the other guys. So it's opportunity costs. And for me, that's why. And I if I'm going to swing for that big upside, I like Pitts. Although I think it's a little bit of a risk that he kind of does a little bit of the same as he did last year, probably with a little bit of increased volume, a little bit of increased touchdown, but it could be just that he's still the best player out in the universe, but still only scores like 4 touchdowns. It's still possible. You know what I mean? Like, right. Whereas if Kelce's gonna be really good because, I mean, even more so now because of a little less attention to, you know, Tyreek Hill and maybe a little bit more concentration of, hey, it's 3rd and 6. I mean, he always goes to Kelce, right? And so I think they create creative ways of getting him the ball, like those little shovel passes by the goal line. It's not even a touchdown pass, but it's a touchdown pass, you know? Yeah. So there's a lot of ways, and they're always by the goal line. Why? Because Patrick Mahomes. So I think that's why Kelce is where he is versus a guy like Pitts. And, you know, Pitts is one of those guys, especially in best ball but yeah, I'd rather get him at value. I do like him in the 3rd round, but boy, oh boy, if he slips at all anywhere to the end of the 3rd into the 4th, you just have to press the button because of that upside. But I love Goddard. You know, he's just so efficient. He, give me Goddard at value.
Cool. Okay. I dig it. All right. So some of the earlier Jalen Hurts talk, they were kind of coming full circle. All right, I like this. This is fun.
Goddard and Alberto that I think offer the most upside outside of the top 5, you know.
To your point earlier about the preseason being dangerous, I mean, we might learn that lesson super hard with Alberto, who is out there, you know, running routes in the 4th quarter and everything. I agree, and that has scared me. I had Alberto as like before the preseason, like he's like mid-tier tight end 1. I was super hyped on. I'm like diehard Russell Wilson fan. Can't stand the Seattle Seahawks, so I was just pumped to see this. You know, anyway. And the preseason kind of scared me, but
yeah, I'm not worried.
Cool. Okay. That's reassuring.
Yeah, I'm not worried. I mean, because again, also because of the strategy, like what are you paying for Alberto? Like, what is he? Nothing. Tight end 12 to tight end 17, somewhere in there. Yeah. So like he's a backup tight end in a redraft league, or, you know, he's just so cheap. I mean, he's your 2nd tight end in best ball. Like, again, the value is there where, look, even if he's average, he'll return value at that cost. And if he hits what he's truly capable of, like, look at his efficiency numbers dating back to his first 2 seasons. He was super efficient, outplayed Noah Fant on a per touch basis, which is saying something. Because if anything, Noah Fant's a good player on a per touch basis. So he was just better than Noah Fant, which is hard to do because Noah Fant's really good. I understand there's some limitations there. I'm not going to get into Noah Fant, but Alberto was one of the most efficient tight ends in the league. And if he can hold on to any part of that, but just increase volume to close to 80 to 100 targets, which I know it's a lot, but with Tim Patrick being gone, look, Mike Gesicki got 109 targets last year. Like, you know, come on. So I think I think Alberto can get him. And then the touchdown upside is there. You see it. Russell Wilson, play action pass, rolling out, and then there's some tight end wide open. That's going to be Alberto.
Yeah, and he's going to be flipping off Pete Carroll while he's doing it, and Alberto is going to flip off Noah Fant. Yeah. Did Greg Dulcich ever scare you?
Not really. Certainly doesn't now because he's on the PUP and everything, but not really, because like if you're believing in David Njoku, does Harrison Bryant scare you? It's like, no, it's fine. Either Njoku's good or he's not, and Harrison Bryant will play. And like, I don't know, like it's just, you need more than one tight end, and Dulcich too does not profile as a blocker. So all of the sort of inline stuff, goal line stuff, where it's like play action and all that stuff, that's all Alberto, unless he's either terrible or hurt, which we don't think he's terrible. Hopefully he doesn't get hurt. Yeah. And so then it's like, okay, well, Dulcich will be a situational sort of move tight end, slot guy, second. Yeah, that's great. Good for Dulcich. But that doesn't take away from what Alberto could and should be.
Agreed. Okay. The fun kind of sneaky upside for him, bummer for, Jerry Jeudy. We still don't quite know. I don't think we quite know that Jerry Judy's like actually great or good. There's a scenario here where Alberto sees way more volume than he maybe even deserves, but that's
correct.
Yeah. Speaking of another,
especially with Patrick out, right? So, I mean, yes. Patrick, wildly underrated in almost every circle. Not in the give me my money because I'm good circle by the NFL. Yeah. They paid him, which is great. But, and I think that contract surprised a lot of people. Did not surprise me. Maybe it didn't surprise you, but I was like, good for him. He fucking deserves it. He's good. He's one of the better wide receivers in the NFL. Like what, top 50 or 60 or something? Like,
yes, I think he's good. I think
he's a good player.
Yeah. Yeah. I dig it. Okay. But we're staying with the Broncos here. Switching positions. Javonte Williams. He profiles very well in your anatomy series.
I love Javonte, dude.
I do too. Okay. Javonte. So all right, actually, you take it away. Everybody's heard me talk about it. Me and my producer disagree with on Javonte. So you're gonna be our tiebreaker here.
Look, Javonte is dope.
Okay, enough said.
Javonte is absolutely dope. And like, I don't know what else to say. Like, what do you want from a running back? Like he's big. Big enough, right? He's what, 215, 218, like close to 220, 5'10, 220. Like he's perfect. 5'10, 215, fine. He's just perfect. Dalvin Cook, right in that side. I love him. The only thing that he did not do, which we didn't think he would do, was run super fast. And that was evident by actually watching him play football. Because when you watched him play football, he wasn't a burner. Like, okay, well, we knew that. But actually, I thought he ran fast enough. I think he ran a 4.57.
I'll check while you're talking. Yeah.
I think he ran a 4.57 at his pro day, which, sort of adjusts to a 4.62-ish, 4.63-ish if you sort of, add the half point for, pro day versus combine. But how close am I? You looking it up?
Draft Scout is not.
No, go to player profile.
Okay.
Player profile. Okay. All right. So anyway, he didn't run fast, but he was super electric. He broke more tackles than anybody at the college level. I always joked he was tackled by the end zone 22 times. In other words, dude would still be running on a few of those runs. In college, he just scored at a breakneck pace. Michael Carter was there and he was, outperformed him, and Michael Carter's a good little running back.
Yeah.
So, he's had to deal with a really good running back in his backfield with him, including Melvin Gordon. But I think this year it's one of those things where Melvin Gordon last year was the veteran who was going to show him what's up. Now he showed him. Now he's the veteran. Like put it this way, if Denver didn't have Melvin Gordon last year and Javonte was on the team and they brought in Melvin Gordon on that contract, no one would be afraid. Right. The only reason we're afraid is because of what happened last year. But I think what happened last year and what happens this year don't have very much correlation to one another.
So, okay, I agree with that. And you're right. Yeah, it was 4.62, like I think pro day on
bingo.
Or 4.57, and then they did the 4.62 adjustment for
there you go. Profile. So it's right on the money. All right.
Yep.
Which is great, right? So it's like if he's a 4.65, 4.68 guy, it's like, Well, that's just not quite fast. But like 4.57, that's fair enough. Like he's fast enough. Like he's not slow. He's just not fast. Does that make sense?
Yes.
But he's a tackle breaker and he's a really instinctive runner. And you see that. You just turn on the film. You're like, ooh, dude, this guy's really good. So he's really good to watch. And now he's in a high powered offense that is projected to score touchdowns. It's the same thing. So look, I'm not trying to get too high on Javonte, but in general, especially in redraft, I'm happy to take him at value.
Yeah. So last year, I think something that's important to keep in mind is that they had Pat Shurmur as their head coach. That's an old school kind of guy. And he wanted the trusty veteran in there with Melvin Gordon. But here's the thing, even with Melvin Gordon in there, they were giving Javonte pass pro reps. Yeah. He went in there and he actually, just going PFF grades or whatever, like he outperformed Melvin Gordon as a pass protector. He did that. Like Pat Shurmur, old school ass dude, went, hey, I'm going to put the rookie out there to keep our quarterback upright. That says something. Now we, like you said, we have this massively upgraded quarterback situation and head coaching situation. I think the Denver Broncos could score like 20 more touchdowns on the whole than they did last year. I
think Melvin Gordon was great last year too. Like as a Javonte,
I was high on him.
Yeah, as a Javonte, I was not, so you win. But as a Javonte guy, I was like, Melvin Gordon will fade. I actually predicted, I predicted that the Javonte season last year would have been very similar to the Nick Chubb season, his rookie year. Okay. Where Nick Chubb was like not getting enough. It was Carlos Hyde or whatever. And it was like, dude, can someone give the fucking ball to Nick Chubb, please? And you know what they did? Like halfway in the season, they're like, maybe we should give it to that guy. Yeah. And they just, they're like, oh, look at, he's good. And I think there was one game in Nick Chubb's rookie season where he had like 3 carries for like 120 yards and like 2 touchdowns. It was like, maybe that guy, maybe the guy who you give it to 3 times and he's like just ripping the field, Carlos Hyde, meanwhile, 2 yards. Yeah, I got it. So, but Melvin Gordon was way better than I would have thought he was. He held up. He was getting a little older. He held up. He didn't get hurt. He was great, man. So I got to give Melvin Gordon a ton of credit for fending off Javonte Williams. But I think that changes this year. Not entirely, but like where it was like 50-50 last year, it was almost 50-50. You'd look at the box score, it was like 12 carries, 13 carries, 4 targets, 3 targets. You're like, Jesus. Like, snap share was like 50-50. I think this year, it just leans a little bit closer in Javonte's favor. It's probably 60-40, 65-35, but that extra 5, 10, 15%, like just on the margins, I think creates, and as you point out, a more efficient, higher powered offense. I think Javonte, what he finished as last year, he was a tight end, pretty close to a tight end one. I mean, a running back 1. I think this year he's got a very good shot of becoming a running back 1 because of that goal line, touchdown upside, the pass catching, the offense, his efficiency, etc. He doesn't really have, unless Melvin Gordon gets hurt, he doesn't have running back 1 overall upside. Okay. But
fair. Yeah,
that's whatever. What are you going to do? That's fine.
So you mentioned the contract earlier. I'm sorry to cut you off. You mentioned the contract earlier, and this is something that, again, the great Dwayne McFarland, he hit on this in like June again and again. Denver they put a take it or leave it deal on the table for Melvin Gordon. He left it. He went. He tried out with Baltimore, and he went. I guess I'm not going to do that. He came back. He signed the deal. Point with that story is very simply the team went. The guy we have in our plans is Javonte Williams.
Yeah, that's right.
And we'd love to have you, Melvin, but this is our dude. So yeah, I think that the signs are there. I also think that this preseason was a good reminder that beat reporters do not know what they're talking about when they're talking about like touch totals and everything, because they were seeing like 80-20 stuff. Like Cecil Lammey, super plugged into the Broncos organization, and he has nailed things in the past. He also started the preseason saying that they were going to split it 80-20. Jonathan Taylor was at like 65%.
Yeah, exactly. It's nonsense. I mean, but at the end of the day, like, you just try and like turn the dials on it. I do projections, Analyst Depot, by the way, if you want to do your own projections, analystdepot.com, just go there. It's awesome. But like, you can do your own projections. I do my own projections there. And it's like, you just turn the dials a little bit. You just kind of say, okay, what if this guy gets a little bit more? and then all of a sudden you see what happens. What if he gets, 0.2 more yards per carry? What if he gets a little bit more touchdowns? Then you go, oh wow, he's running back 11 on the season, whatever. So you kind of just see what a little bit more does. It doesn't have to be like 80%, man, or because 80% is probably not happening.
No, he just needs a couple upgrades here and there, and he's going to be.
Instead of 12 carries, he gets 16. Like that's it. It's fine. A couple extra,
makes one world of difference.
Yeah. A couple extra targets. Like, that's it. Just one or two here and there. Yeah. Anyway,
so speaking of running back battle here, where a ton of targets I think hang in the balance, or maybe not. New Patriots backfield. We've got Damian Harris hot off 15 touchdowns and Ramondre Stevenson, who moves in ways that a dude his size shouldn't be able to move. He catches the ball in ways that guys his size shouldn't be able to catch the ball. Bill Belichick was talking about how what they might do this year is they like put one guy on the field for a full series, and Damian Harris takes third down reps, and then Ramondre goes out there and he takes the next series. This doesn't make any sense to me. I understand that the Patriots have operated with very specific running back roles in the past, but two things are true here. One, they have strayed from them slightly in that they have increased workloads here and there when need be. But two, overall, the guy who goes in every single year and changes his entire defensive scheme and offensive scheme as needed is Bill Belichick. This dude, he will accrue new personnel, and he will just change things in ways that I don't think any other team does so on a regular basis. They have a dual threat in Ramondre Stevenson, and they have a very good ball carrier in Damian Harris.
Yes.
So you were the mass hole. Tell me what to me, this looks like Ramondre Stevenson is about to explode.
Yeah. I mean, in Dynasty, for me, it's Ramondre. I'm not excited about this Patriot season. Did you know, I think this is a true statement I'm about to say. They are paying their tight ends and wide receivers more than any other team in the NFL. Did you know that?
I think I've seen Hayden Winks talk about, or maybe it's Warren Sharp talk about their free agency spending in that regard. Yeah.
Yeah. In other words, they're paying like this, Hunter Henry and Devontae Parker and Jonnu Smith and Nelson Aguilar and this group of, shitbags, as I like to say, more than any other. And it's like, to think that it's like they're literally contending for bottom 5 weapons in the NFL at the passing weapons. So Ramondre is great. Damian Harris is a fucking beast. You watch him run, it's like really, really impressive. Like, he breaks tackles in the way that, like, when you're playing a video game and the character doesn't even move, but the defender just bounces off him, you're like, well, that's not realistic. That happens to Damian Harris. Sometimes we're like, wait, was that fucking CGI? What happened there? Like, dude, just like Nick Chubb style, where Nick Chubb is running and like the guy just like, where'd he go? Like, that's Damian Harris sometimes, but he caught like 4 passes. You know what I mean? So it matters not very much. Ramondre does have presumably the higher pass catching upside. And you would think, I'm totally nervous about this backfield and the team in general, just because it's like, we don't know. Josh McDaniel's gone for the first time in however many years, a lot of them. And I don't know, what the hell are they going to do? Like, I would assume, if I were thinking rationally and I was trying to think like them, what would I do if I were them? I've said it before. I would want to keep Damian Harris or Ramondre Stevenson on the field at all times. Like, in other words, Ty Montgomery. Yeah, no, thanks. Like, JJ Taylor, get the fuck out of here. Like, whoever else you're thinking of, Pierre Strong, maybe, but like, even still, it's like, just keep these 2 guys in the field. Like, oh, you're tired, you go in. Oh, you're tired, you go in. Like, just keep those 2 guys out there. And so for those reasons, I would want Ramondre to sort of be that pass down back, but maybe not, right? Like, that's what I'm saying. But what are they going to do? They could be like, we get to week 1 and Ramondre's got 6 carries. Damian Harris had 12, and like Ty Montgomery has like 7 targets. And you're like, fuck it. You know what I mean? Like, it can happen quick in New England where you're like, what the, okay, I guess we're doing this, you know, Brandon Bolden last year. Like, you know, I know James White got hurt, but nobody saw Brandon Bolden coming.
No.
Like, you know, I think there was JJ Taylor. Even I remember picking up JJ Taylor, like, ho, he's the James White guy. Didn't fucking play. Like, we just don't know. So they're definitely difficult in that way. So I'm mostly a stay away, but especially in Dynasty, I'd like to, I certainly want to sell Damian Harris, but you know, wait till he goes out and scores 3 touchdowns in Miami and we win by 20. Let's go, baby. No, I'm joking. We're probably going to get smoked. I think it's going to be awful. It's going to be painful.
I mean, it seems like to me, like Matt Patricia is kind of the biggest like roadblock that you guys have. And I don't know what Belichick.
Don't forget Joe Judge.
Yeah. Jesus. That's right. Yeah. Yeah. The Ringer guys talking about those two interviewing as like at the Step Brothers dual interview. Good time. Anyway. Yeah.
Patricia should just wear that Goodell clown nose shirt to every interview. Like, I mean, here I am. What the fuck? Hire me up. Let's go.
So, okay. All right. So I get the back. This is sobering for me because I am so high on Ramondre, and I do need to be reminded that it, you know, there are multiple outs. I just don't think it's Ty Montgomery. And I think to your point of, or, you know, you briefly mentioned Pierre Strong, like that kid seems like he can kind of play. So, maybe he's the stick in the spokes, but
right.
This is the one that I've been most excited to talk to you about. Well, we're almost there. We're going to have a battle at the end where I'm going to make you choose between, you know, your two guys, or maybe
Easy
not
choice.
Your two guys. Okay. Oh, okay. All right, cool. So San Francisco 49ers running backs, Jordan Mason versus Tyrion Davis-Price, the serial killer, and Elijah Mitchell.
Yeah.
What do you think? What is this?
And Jeff Wilson.
And Jeff. Well, so I left him off there, which tells you how I feel about the fourth, but break it down.
Well, you said it. It appears as though Kyle Shanahan doesn't care about draft capital, especially considering he released Trey Sermon when they had a pretty immense investment in Trey Sermon. They had no investment in Jordan Mason, yet kept him over Trey Sermon. Now that tells me that either one, Trey Sermon is the biggest shitbag on the planet. 2, Jordan Mason is really, really good. Or 3, that it's like they're really close, but Kyle Shanahan truly doesn't care about that draft capital and just wants to keep the best player. Typically, you need, like I said it with Lance McCutcheon, you need to be a lot better to usurp a guy with draft capital. Like if they're close, they're like, let's just keep the guy we're invested in, you know? So that it tells us something about Jordan Mason. But if you look at his profile, he's not all that explosive. I just think he's a good football player. It's really what he is.
Okay.
And I think Trey Sermon may be one of the, I don't know him at all. I'm sure he's maybe a wonderful human being. He transferred. I always feel like when a guy transfers, it's not a red flag. Like, oh, is this guy a bad guy? Not like that, but like what happened, you know, like, I don't know. I don't know. Like, I'm not there, but something happened, right? When something happens in a relationship and you hear like, oh, they broke up, you're like, what happened? Right? Right? Something happened. I don't know what happened. I'm just asking.
Yeah. Was
it the coach or was it that jerk off Trey Sermon? I don't know. Like, but maybe it was him, and maybe he's just, I don't know. Maybe he's, you know, because he's probably pretty talented, but maybe he's just I don't know, something, you know.
He could be Corey Coleman.
Right. You know what I mean? It could just be a stupid ass motherfucker, but I don't know, or not. I don't know, but I'm just saying, like, so it tells us something. Jordan Mason, at the end of the day, earned himself a spot on a team that seems like a meritocracy and don't give a shit. So if he's healthy and he's the next man up, a la J. Michael Hasty, he could get some opportunity, a la Eli Mitchell. So we've seen it happen in the past with other guys. It could very well happen for him. And that's why it's like one of those backfields that you just kind of want to find the value. And obviously Jordan Mason, look, he's free in redraft. I mean, good grief. I mean, so he's one of those guys that you just want to look in Dynasty. He's rostered everywhere I'm at because you really want a San Francisco starting running back. I'm not saying that's him, but it could be him after 1 week of an injury or something. Who knows, right? We just don't know. And as you point out, it's TDP, who doesn't have an amazing college profile.
No.
Jeff Wilson, who is just a guy.
Yeah.
And Elijah Mitchell was a 6th-round pick. So it's not like, no way, Jordan Mason. But at the same time, he feels like 4th on that totem pole, at least as of right now. I mean, it just feels like it.
I hear you. I have a tough time accepting basically like Jeff Wilson, and he's a dude who I have been. It was like 2 years ago. I was listening to an interview with Kyle Shanahan, and there was some goal line situation or like green zone situation where they had someone else out there, and he casually mentioned, yeah, actually Jeff was the guy that we wanted on the field for that package, but we didn't have the time to like do the substitution or whatever. And I was like, what the hell are you talking? You wanted him in scoring. You wanted Jeff Wilson in scoring position. So he does think something of this guy. I don't see it, but I'm not Kyle Shanahan.
You know who else made the team over Trey Sermon?
Yeah.
Jeff Wilson.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I'm just very like ready to like see, I mean, you can plant a flag and that's probably pretty smart. Like if you loved Jordan Mason, like, I missed a few spots with Elijah Mitchell because I was a little too pragmatic last year. And so I missed some redraft spots where I should have had him. I got him in some spots too, but like Scott Fishbowl, namely, where it was especially important that you nabbed him. My advice in our group chats was a little bit soft, and it should have been go get that motherfucker, so not that he was a league winner. I mean, I know he got hurt and stuff, but I was it's funny because I was such an Elijah Mitchell fan pre-draft, during the draft, like the whole time. And then it's like, it's this time. I'm like, I'm not sure, guys, I don't know. Sometimes I back off the take a little bit. I don't know.
Well, so, okay.
Maybe I'm doing that with Jordan Mason is what I'm saying. I don't know.
I think I might be doing that with Tyrion Davis-Price because that dude is on, I'm not going to say it because it's a little embarrassing, but he is on the majority of my best ball teams. Okay. And then Mason came in this preseason and just ripped it up. He was so good. So I think, correct process is add one of these guys
or multiple. Like, honestly, it's like one of those backfields where if you have 2 or 3 of them or whatever, you can sort of play the one that is starting that week. Cause like, sometimes it's like, you kind of almost sometimes know, like they kind of tell you, oh, Eli's questionable. It's like, oh, well, it's going to be, you sometimes will figure these things out.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. Let's see where we are on the show. Okay. So
I love it.
Oh my gosh. So this is another dude that I am awfully high on this year. We're only talking redraft though. And we can sprinkle some dynasty on here, but James Cook. I think that the situation this dude is in is sublime. This team very clearly wanted to get a pass catching back for Josh Allen. And there's, there are concerns that positional targeting, whatever. I mean, he's a good player. Allen has never had a guy who can do what Cook can do. And right out of the gates, we have this matchup against the Los Angeles Rams where it's like this vaunted defense, but I think the opportunity is going to be there. So we're going to do a little name game here with James Cook. And again, focusing on redraft here. Okay. We'll start slow. James Cook, Jordan Mason.
James
Cook, Darrell Henderson.
That's a good one. It's funny. I do you have their ADPs? Can't you get Darrell Henderson a little cheaper than James Cook?
I
feel like I get James Cook. I feel like I have to pay more for James Cook. I don't know if that's correct. Is that
Henderson's
right?
coming? Yeah. And so Henderson, I'm looking at like consensus right now. It looks like he's like RB 42 and Cook is 39.
Okay, so pretty close. I'm just gonna look real quick at Underdog while I've got it because why not?
Cook's at 106 on Underdog and Henderson's 114.
There you go. So a little bit cheaper. And I tend to prefer Darrell Henderson, but I think that's a little bit because it's like it's like a little bit of a round later. It's like, oh, look, I've got Darrell Henderson here. He sort of quote unquote falls to me more. I think they're close. I think it's Darrell Henderson though. I think I prefer Darrell Henderson, believe it or not.
James Cook, Michael Carter.
James Cook.
James Cook, Tony Pollard.
Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard by a mile.
Yeah. James Cook, Ramondre. Yeah, so I think we kind of like found his spot here. Splitting that one down the middle.
Do you have James Cook over any of the guys that you asked me about, or all of them?
Yeah. I have him actually this week, just for like week 1 rankings. I have Cook one spot ahead of Darrell Henderson, who I have many spots ahead of Cam Akers. I do have Cook a little ways behind Ramondre, but I think on the season, I'm frank. I'm kind of bullish on these two guys. I think that Ramondre and James Cook are both like back end RB2s. I think that Cook can kind of take this backfield by storm. And I mean, regardless of format, and I forget who was talking about this, like, people kind of elevate guys who can't catch passes in like standard scoring format. And not that that's relevant because nobody plays it, but even then, like, just a reception is worth, so yardage wise, it's worth so much more. This team passes well over 60% in neutral passing game situations. Just purely looking at first half early down stuff, it's the same situation. So let's see here. They've subtracted Emmanuel Sanders. I mean, I think Zach Moss is just like this walking dust ball. Devin Singletary has routinely been one of the worst pass catching running backs in the NFL. Dawson Knox, I think Dawson Knox is more Austin Hooper than he is like, on the Jonnu to Kittle spectrum. I think that Cook can like, God, it's putting numbers to this is where it starts to get scary, but like the dude could get like 80 targets.
If he gets 80 targets, he will be by far the most targets that have Josh Allen has targeted a running back. Now, of course, the defense of that are people like Christian McCaffrey and stuff, where it's like Cam Newton didn't target running backs until he had Christian McCaffrey. I just don't know if I'm ready to put James Cook in that sort of earth mover role where it's like, oh no, because he's here, we're going to do shit totally different. I don't see James Cook like that. I see James Cook as far less than that. Now, I do think he's a good little player. They do have Devin Singletary. I don't think he comes in and moves the earth. And I do agree with you that Zach Moss is a shitbag. I've dropped him in a couple leagues, dynasty leagues, and I've seen him picked up, of course, because he's rosterable. And I don't feel bad about it one way at all. I'm like, you fucking have him. I dropped him. I wasn't trading him. I wasn't trying to trade him. I just dropped his ass. You take him. It's your luggage now. But so yeah, it's fun to do actually. Watch him break out. Right? Be so like, oh yeah, that doesn't hurt at all. But James Cook, I just don't see him as that earth mover. So therefore, you look at like I went back and I'm shooting from memory, which is a pretty good memory, but it's like Josh Allen is the most running back targets was close to 100, but usually between 50 and 80, total running back targets from Josh Allen. He's had Devin Singletary. He's had some guys. I don't think he's had, but let's say he goes to the top set at 100. I mean, you're going to have 65 or 70 of those go to James Cook. The rest go to these other guys. I mean, that's still to me a lot. I just don't see an Alvin Kamara, outcome here. He doesn't have Phil Rivers or Drew Brees. He's got Josh Allen. And of course he's playing on the same field with Gabe Davis and Steph Diggs. Notice I put Gabe Davis first.
Yeah, you did. Yeah. That's all very fair. And I think probably more reasonable than the angle that I've taken, but yeah. I'm excited to watch.
Especially if you sort of threw some slander at my boy Cam Akers, which I'm gonna let slide because you're such a good person. But I'm only teasing. But if you're that low on Cam Akers, you should, I think, necessarily be high on Darrell Henderson or Darrell. Is it Darrell or Darrell?
We'll call him Henderson.
D Henderson.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
you can't do that because I'm an old Boston, guy. So the Red Sox. Okay. But in all seriousness, I think that, there should be a lot of running back points scored in that Los Angeles backfield as well. I just don't know. I mean, does Singletary just go away? Like he was pretty, effective down the stretch, I mean,
he's a good ball carrier. I think that Singletary is a good rusher.
I don't love him, but I mean, I think he has a role, is I guess what I'm getting. I don't think Cook comes in and like, you're done. I think it's a little bit of a split there, I think, don't you?
From a rushing perspective, yes, absolutely. I think that I'm reading what the team did in the offseason as being this big tell. And
yes,
I like if the dust settles at the end of the year and Devin Singletary and Zach Moss both have the receiving profile that Damian Harris had last year, I'm not going to be surprised based on what Brandon Beane showed us when they signed JD McKissick and they made him like, it was like a top 20 running back average annual value salary that they gave him. It was 2 years, $7 million. And then he backed out of the last second. And then they spent the highest draft pick of the Brandon Beane era on a running back to go get James Cook. And just kind of applying this, similar concepts to what we're talking about with the Broncos backfield. Like the team is saying something with these actions here. Now, Josh Allen, maybe he just decides he's not going to do that. That could be it. And we don't know that James Cook is good, but I think
you want to hear something? Want to hear something crazy?
Yeah.
I was like, I haven't updated my projections. I did my projections, I don't remember, like a month ago or something like that, like well before cut downs and stuff. So, I don't look at them as like, these are my projections, but I was just kind of curious. I wonder what they are. I've been updating them a little bit, but not enough, just the NFC West so far, whatever. So I go, oh, I wonder what they look like. So if you remember who you asked me, James Cook was, better than or worse than, who do you have him ahead of? I went and looked and I have, James Cook is RB 37. RB 38 and 39 are Darrell Henderson and Michael Carter. and it's not a ranking. It's just like I literally input the projection.
Yeah.
And then for this team, and then do this team, and then do this team. Like they have nothing to do with one another. It's just how they came out. And so, just to look at it real quick, I had James Cook for 110 carries, 500 yards, 3 touchdowns, right? Okay. 56 targets, which is the key, right? If you say 80, he vaults up to like RB2, and RB2, right?
Yeah.
And if you 56, 39 catches, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. So 5 touchdowns, about 800 yards, 40 catches. And I think that's, I don't know, like the catching, the reception upside is much higher than that. Of course. Mm-hmm. I see that. Like, honestly, like 100 targets, 70 catches is possible. I'm not saying it's not, whereas like it's not possible for Michael Carter.
Yes, sure.
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, I see that, so for upside alone, that's why I answered quickly Cook over Carter for that upside. Henderson's one of those guys where it's like, you're right. He could have 200 carries, 50 targets or something, you know what I mean? Where you're like, whoa, he's, if something happens to Akers or who knows what, right? So, that's why I liked Henderson pretty close to Cook and both of them pretty well ahead of Carter, even though when I do a projection, they're very close to one another.
I know it's not on the show sheet. I'll just mention the LA Rams, their backfield, as far as I'm concerned, like I think what it could devolve into is just Darrell Henderson. He leads the team in carries. Cam Akers kind of rumbles along behind him. And then Kyron Williams comes in as a pass catcher that just sort of messes their ceilings up a little bit. My issue with Akers is purely related to the Achilles. I think that he was a super exciting player. Before that, the Achilles surgery, it's like, as I've heard you mention, we're not talking about like the 1970s anymore. It is still a surgery. I think that they've been doing since like 2010. Like Jordan Rodriguez did a good breakdown of this, but the way that they were able to do the surgery, it kind of minimized atrophy. So like there's a chance, and this is something that like Edwin Porras, who's been on the show before, he's talked about this. What we saw from Akers. Oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about it. Yeah. He's like, he's tweeted out some of the stuff I think that he has. Yeah, that's awesome. So Edwin, something that he's kind of touched on is that like what we saw from Akers, because of the fact that they were able to minimize atrophy. What we saw last year, that just might be him.
Right.
Now he has draft cap, and he's on a damn good offense, and so maybe even if he is this like severely reduced form of himself, maybe it just works out, or maybe his physical therapy is phenomenal and he just rumbles to a fantastic season. I have Achilles tendinopathy in both of my Achilles, and so I'm projecting my bias onto this.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm more interested in Henderson, but at the same time, like he's not that durable. He's not that big of a back. It seems like a three-way committee to me.
Yeah, I'm it's tough for me because I was a big Akers fan before the injury. Obviously, there has to be a little bit of, trepidation post injury. But I think if there's a pathway for a guy to be an alpha back in the Rams backfield, it's Cam Akers, and if not, it's a committee. So for me, it's like, I don't think Darrell Henderson's just going to run away with it. I just don't see that, but stranger things have happened. But I'm hoping Cam Akers is, the thing with Cam Akers, and I've said this on my pod, is like Cam Akers is not a nuanced running back. He's been an explosive running back. And so the problem with that, of course, is if any of his explosion is sapped from the injury, then he ceases to be a really elite player. So it's not like some guys, Frank Gore was like, oh man, this guy's good he was just nuanced and savvy for years. And he was slow toward the end, but it didn't matter. He was so good and tough and able to get a couple extra yards based on movement. And like, that's not who Cam Akers is. He was lightning in a bottle, young, explosive, and he's still young. And if somehow or another that sort of injury didn't sap him entirely, he's a young, explosive, dope running back in an awesome, high-powered offense. And so there's a huge ceiling play with Akers, and the more he falls, the more I want to take him. I'm pretty well invested in Dynasty, but that was pre-Achilles. I didn't really sell, and I didn't really buy too much of him in Dynasty post Achilles or during the Achilles. So I'm just kind of hoping he pulls through. It'd be kind of cool. Injuries suck. Everybody hates them. So, you just like to see everybody at their very best. And so I'd love to see Akers be awesome, or as awesome as he can be, whatever that is. And if it's not good enough, fuck him. You know what I mean? But like, I want to see him, right? I just want to see him be as good as he can be, because that's what we all want, right? All these guys, like, I hate injuries. It's like, imagine turning on injuries in Madden, like to the highest level. You'd be like, what is wrong with you, bro? So, yeah.
Okay. All right. On to just only happiness now.
Yes.
Same thing with Gabe Davis here. Just Julius Chestnut, backup running back for the Tennessee Titans. Please take it away.
Another victory lap. Like, I gotta give it up to Noah Hills, though. At Noah More Parties. Love him. He does great work. Super geeky podcast. He does it for BDGE. And for those who are just into it, it's great. He's fucking awesome. He's like geeky, but he like tells you off while he's doing it. He's got an edge. I love him. He's been on my show. He's great. I love him. So Noah More Parties, Noah Hills was the guy who unearthed, to me anyway, Julius Chestnut. But when he started to tell me about Julius Chestnut, it was like anatomy profile down the middle, except for he went to a school that actually recruited me to play football, Sacred Heart, which is not good. That's a bad thing. The fact that I got recruited to play at the same school is not good, because I was not good. So it's like, it's a small little school in the Northeast. I don't even remember where it is, like Fairfield, Connecticut or some shit. It's in the middle of nowhere. It's nothing, so he played there, and, that's nothing, but he's big, strong, fast. And it turns out he's probably not as much of a Saquon Barkley player as we thought he was, like, as we start to see him in and amongst NFL peers, but he's a rough running back. He is a really aggressive runner with purpose. So he's closer to and again, Nick Chubb. He's not Nick Chubb. I'm not saying he is. He's closer to that style of runner than he is to a Saquon Barkley all-purpose player. But man, oh man, there's some purpose for this guy out there. And if he gets an opportunity, in that Damian Harris type of mold, if he can catch a few passes Damian Pierce, Damian Harris, Nick Chubb, Ken Walker, that sort of mold. Again, as a backup player who barely made the team coming out of Sacred Heart, our expectations are low, but very, very cool that he made the team. We loved him as a prospect based off some of the analytics that we looked at, and he made the team. It was pretty cool. It was awesome to see.
Yeah. So what I was heartened by watching him, heartened by, was the Titans. I noticed in the preseason were kind of throwing the ball to their running backs a little bit more than I thought they were. And not just Dontrell Hilliard, they were throwing it to Chestnut and to Hassan Haskins.
Yeah.
I don't think Haskins, I mean, congratulations for making the roster, Hassan, but I don't think that he necessarily profiles as this big explosive athlete who can just, be Derrick Henry 2.0. He kind of looks like him just by his size.
Yes, that's right.
But it seems like that's where the comparison kind of ends. And suddenly we're like, I mean, maybe so Derrick Henry, let's say he misses time and they got to pick someone. Okay, they'll probably put Haskins out there first to like bang between the tackles, and Dontrell Hilliard will do his thing. But Vrabel is one of those coaches that like he wants that hard worker in practice and everything. It just seems like Chestnut landed in a good place.
Yeah, I think Chestnut made the team. Making the team is huge because really they only needed to keep 3 and they kept 4. And they've got Derrick Henry. Like, what do they need depth for? It's like, dude, we're good. And so I think Chestnut makes the team. Again, it's another one of these things that I'm talking about where it's like he's probably better than Haskins, because if Haskins is like way better than Chestnut, they just cut Chestnut because they're like, we already have fucking Haskins. What do we need you for? But because they drafted Haskins, I think it was the 3rd round, maybe the 4th round,
3rd or 4th,
whatever, pretty good draft capital. And then Chestnut's undrafted. It's like, he has to be really good to make the team, and that means he is. Right? Because they wouldn't have kept him unless he's really good. They'd have been like, yeah, we'll just let you go, motherfucker. Like, we don't need you. But actually, we like you a lot. We're going to keep you. So I think that is another telling sign. It's just like the Jordan Mason thing, So, and again, it doesn't mean that he's going to get opportunity. As you point out, if Derrick Henry broke his knee tomorrow, it's probably Dontrell Hilliard for 60%. And then, the next 40% is, 28 and 12 for the Haskins, and Chestnut gets a few opportunities, but when he gets those opportunities, if he breaks them off and he looks way better, that's when he gets that chance to like be like, yo, Haskins, sit the fuck down. I got this shit.
Yeah. All right. So you did it for me. You brought up Jordan Mason here. Talking redraft, you have to choose one of these guys to put on the end of your bench and not think of it. Let's say you're gifted with a magical bench spot that doesn't eat into everything. Which one of these guys do you want to put a chip on this year?
In redraft, it's Mason. In dynasty, it's Chestnut. I know that's cheating, but I'll tell you why. In redraft, it's all about opportunity. And I think that Jordan Mason has the better a chance for opportunity, considering the sort of, murky backfield, if you will. I know Eli Mitchell's there, but Eli Mitchell checks notes, not Derrick Henry. And so, Derrick Henry, as long as he stays healthy, will be the back. Now, I suppose if you factor in the fact that I am really terrified of Derrick Henry's foot.
Me too.
Maybe it is Julius Chestnut.
He's 29 years old. Adam Hutchison of 4for4 did excellent work.
Former Undroppable.
Dude, you guys are killing it.
Yeah.
I love the medical side of things. I think that it's a fantastic angle.
We pump out all the doctors. It's awesome. We've put doctor after doctor out in the world, and we get poached all the time. Adam's great, man. Purdue guy. I mean, I don't hold that against him. Adam's one of my very good friends. Absolutely love Adam.
Yeah, he's been great. He's come on. I think he's been on this show 3 or 4 times now.
He's an awesome dude.
Yeah.
Anyway, you were saying, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. He did a profile basically of should we be worried about Christian McCaffrey? I've talked about this on the show before, but what he did was he looked through different types of running backs. He categorized them. Henry falls into the grinder mold. He doesn't catch a lot of passes, and basically the average drop-off age for production is after the, I think, 24-and-a-half-year-old season. Henry's 29, and he's coming off of a Jones fracture. this is the worst offensive line he's played behind in at least the Ryan Tannehill era. I mean, I think he's just going to get pummeled behind the line. I've been very high on Derrick Henry over the last few years. This is the first year I'm like ripcord.
Yeah. I've been ripcord every year and it's been wrong every time. So I'm just pull that cord again, pull it again. I mean, it's the pass catching that's been a problem. And, you know, he really had to, he had to go for 2,000 yards and like 42 touchdowns to like end up as the RB4. God bless him. He did it. He was an absolute monster. And I had him in a couple spots last year. Of course, I was like, finally, let's ride him. And then he hurts himself. So yeah, whatever. Not complaining. Yes, I am. But yeah, I mean, last year when he came back for the playoffs, he looked awful in the playoffs. And I know he was coming back from the injury. And, you know, I had the famous, well, not famous because I'm nobody, but famous in my small circle tweet. You know, it looked like he was playing with a steel foot in his plate. I mean, a steel plate in his foot, not a steel foot in his plate. Sorry. It's late. I've been drinking.
I got you. Yeah.
But it did, man. He just did look like he had a steel plate in his foot and a steel plate in his shoe. And that checks notes was true. And so I don't know, man, I don't like my running backs with steel plates in their feet and shoes. I don't know how much better. Feet are scary, man. Right. It's all small bones and shit. You know what I mean? It's like you can be big and strong. It's like, yeah, your foot's broken, bro. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You can't run anymore. Sorry. Big, strong muscle man, sit the fuck down. Your foot's broke. And so it's just it's a fragile area of the body. And once it's broke, I don't know, man, you know, is it fixed? I don't know. If it is 2,000 yards, let's go, baby. But it's a big risk. And as you point out, the offense is a little bit more, no AJ Brown, like it's a little bit scarier, right? Offensive line, step back, you know, I don't know. I'm with you. There's a lot of red flags there. And if he does get hurt, yeah, you're right. It's like, it's a very winnable backfield for Julius Chestnut.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We're getting you out of here on that. Jax, you have been extremely generous with your time. I am more appreciative than you will ever know. Everyone who is not already following Mr. Falcone, can you tell them where to find you?
Yeah. Twitter at Dino Game Theory. You can find us on Twitter at the Undroppables. We're doing a lot of cool stuff. Go to theundroppables.com. We put out a lot of great content that's free. Offensive line rankings, which are great. Brad Wire. There's just a ton of stuff we do. Waiver stuff, like the whole thing. We're trying to put it one-stop shop. We have redraft rankings, dynasty rankings. You can see my rankings there for free for a while. Who knows how long? I don't know. We're trying to keep it for free, man. You know, I don't really ask for a bunch of money. So just go to the site, just be part of the team. Meaning, you know, we're trying to help people win fantasy football and we're trying to do it for free. That's fun as shit. So come to the Undroppables, check us out. Also, of course, the Undrafted podcast where you can hear me swear and have all these fire takes and not give one F at all. I do not care. I'm just there to have fun. I have not really done a lot of sponsors on my show and I just like to rip it and have fun. And we have a lot of great guests and some big guests, some small guests. I don't really care about that either. I just like interesting people to talk to. So check out the Undrafted. It's a lot of fun.
It's fantastic. It's the best part of my Friday. And I tell everybody that all the time.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much. Yeah. All right, everybody. I will talk to you all next week sometime, hopefully with another fire guest. Thank you so much, Jack. This was a blast. Jax.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I'll talk to you on Twitter.
You got it, man.